Hey, you're thinking about heading over to your local fish store to pick up some brand new fishies, aren't you? Well, before you do, listen to these smart, lovely people help you make sure you're buying a healthy fish.
What do you look for before buying a fish? First off, I'm looking at it and I'm making sure it's acting right. I mean, if it's hiding back in a corner or if it looks like it's been beaten upon, I know 1A, it's a less dominant fish. 2B, chances are there's something not right about it. I'm also looking at the gills and I'm looking at the scales. I also look at the fins. Make sure I don't see any spots or I don't see anything as far as growth on the fins and what have you. Normally, I mean, if you follow those three things, most of the time you'll end up okay. And then, like I said, overall character of the fish, is it swimming around, is it acting normal, is probably what I look for.
What is it that I look for when I'm looking for fish to buy? Well, the first thing I look for, well, it's not even in the fish tank. It is the supplier. I want to do my research and know who I am getting my fish or plants from, for that matter, or invertebrates, snails and shrimp. I make sure that I know if it's a wild caught fish, has it been put in quarantine for 90 days or several weeks or whatever the protocol should be for that species. Is it a healthy and active fish? Do they have a good reputation at that place for treating their fish well and feeding their fish well, not just treating their fish well? And do they have their fish a while sometimes? I mean, not forever, but do they have them long enough that you can come in 1 week, come back the next week, and see that they're active, eating, and engaged in whatever fishy nonsense they should be? The main thing you can look for if you don't know that stuff, or if you've already cleared that stuff, is color. So obviously, your bright fish, your colorful fish, they should be bright and colorful. If they're not, they may be stressed. If they're stressed, their health is probably sure to follow. I just moved these fish. These are those same fish that you just saw, those bright red ones, and they're stressed. It means they're not happy. They're susceptible to illness. The other thing you can look at is their stress level by their biofilm and their slime coat. So their slime coat is going to be visible as a clear mucousy membrane. If it's at all white or sloughing off in snotty layers, that fish is not healthy. The other thing you want to do is make sure that your schooling fish are roughly schooling or at least socially engaged with their fellow fish. They're not alone in the corner or gasping for air at the top, and unless they're some sort of killifish that's supposed to be gasping for air at the top. You want to make sure that they are the colors that they should be, as I mentioned, but you also want to make sure that their patterns are good, and that if they're a young fish, that they're showing the colorations and markings they should be for their age, and that they are not just discolored or poor grade fish. You want to make sure that they don't have any bent spines, missing fins, or chewed fins. That may mean that they were in a very tight packed area and that they are not healthy. Also, you want to look for sunken bellies or bloated bellies. In the case of this species, Beckford pencilfish are supposed to have bloated bellies when they're females. They're full of eggs. Now the males, not so much. But you need to know these things because if they're too bloated, they may have dropsy or other issues. And the last thing I would say to look for is look in their eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul and to the transshipper that brought them into the country. If they've had dropsy or other malnutrition issues, their eyes may be foggy, milky, cloudy. And if they're inbred or having issues with the genetics that are bad, they may also have missing eyes or discolored eyes that are just not bright and that don't focus, that don't follow things and move when you look at them closely. If all these things are in line, you probably have a healthy fish. Good luck, guys. Happy fish keeping. I'll talk to you later.
When I'm out looking for a fish, I try to be particular. When I go out like to a fish show or something, I try to focus in on what I really want because I'm really bad about buying everything else. But when I do, like let's say I go to a store or something, I want to look at all the tank mates and see if there's something dead. If there's something dead, I mean, I just pass on it. I know that I have some occasionally fish die. Everybody has fish die in their tanks. But if you see, you know, dead fish in the tank, especially if it's kind of getting the nasty scum on it, don't buy those fish. If it looks like the fish has been all chewed up, then you've got fish eating, you might be buying the fish that just ate the dead fish. So I try to look around at the other fish in the tank to see how they look. And of course, the one that I'm particularly buying also. But yeah, there's, like the old saying is, there's plenty of fish in the sea. If the tank is sick, just wait and move on to the next one.
So what I look for in a fish that maybe is different, I don't know if it's different, but the first and foremost is, what are the odds I can buy this fish again? Because I'm usually looking for some rare stuff, and a lot of times if I'm somewhere else in the world and I've never seen this fish before, I have to throw caution to the wind, and kind of, or to the side, and go, these don't look great, but I don't have another chance, I don't think ever, right? But in general, what I'm looking for is health. I'm looking for, do the fish have ick? Do they have torn fins? What's their coloration? Does it look like there might be some bacterial issues, some graying on the body? Are their fins clamped, right? What are the overall conditions at the store? And what do I think the staff level help is, or wherever I am, right? And so I'm trying to get a picture of, what was this life of this fish growing up? How has it been the last week or two? And what is my battle plan going forward? And I think that's maybe what not a lot of people think about is, assuming this fish came home with me today and I got 6 of these, what is my treatment plan to get them to where I want them to be? And usually for me, that's going to be like live baby brine shrimp. That might be some salt in the tank when I get them home to feed, to help cure up some fin damage, and maybe that's some stuff starting here or there. If they're, and I've bought fish before that are clearly sick, but are so rare that I'm willing to take that risk and try to save them. And so in that case, they're going straight into medications, and again, with live baby brine, and going, okay, I'm gonna get them in their own dedicated tank. I've got that set up at home already. Usually there's live plants, it's fully cycled. I'll get meds in there, and knowing that if I bought 6 fish, maybe only 4 are gonna make it. But from that point on, if I can get something healthy, usually I'm able to breed it and keep it going and things like that. So what I'm looking for is, overall, what do I think my success with this fish is, even if I have to do a bunch of work? Not so much, is this the best possible fish I can buy here at the store? Is this the most brightly colored male of the group? I don't really look for that, because once an employee gets in there and is maybe trying to catch fish, a lot of times you can lose the color and you lose track of it, and you didn't even get the one you really fell in love with. And so I'm usually buying a group of fish and going from this group of fish, analyze that. How do I think I'll do long term? Will I be able to make them look as good as they are here or better? Will I be able to breed them? And will I get my enjoyment out of that? And I think I would, because I do enjoy going, these things were on death's door, I got them healthy, now they're breeding. To me, that shows the whole cycle of fish care in a window of like 6 months on something like that. So yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for the ones that need a little bit of help.
What do you look for before you buy a particular fish? Now, if this question regards the health of the fish, then I like to look and see if there's a visible parasite on the fish, because if there is, I'm definitely not going to get it. This could be online or in the store. It's a lot easier to see if they have parasite if they're in the store, because sometimes online, if you ask for videos, they'll probably send you a video of the healthiest fish. I also like to look for if the fish is eating well and what it is eating, because that's a good sign if the fish is healthy. Because generally if the fish is sick, sometimes they won't eat. So if the fish is eating, then that's a really good sign for me to look for. And also, something weird that I look for that not many other people look for is the price. So I know that bronze Corioras are occasionally sold as Corridor Equis, and there's a big difference between the two. So if I see a certain fish, let's say Corridor Equis, for example, at my LFS, and the Corridor Equis is marked at $5, then I know that something's up, because Corridor Equis are like a $20 to $40 fish. So those are 3 things that I like to look for before I buy a particular fish.
This one's like a two-sided one. If I'm going to a pet store, I don't go crazy with it. I will look in the tank, see if there's any dead fish, do like a quick like ick check or fin check just to make sure they're okay. And other than that, I make sure they're active in the tank. If I'm going to a pet store, that's what I do. If I'm buying online, I will first of all look at multiple websites for a fish. I will read the reviews from each website on how the fish came in, how their shipping was, how the fish did after they got put in their tanks. I will look at the shipping time, so if it's anything past like priority 2 to 3 day shipping, I most likely will not go through them because I don't want the fish to be so stressed out that when they finally get put in my tank, they are shocked and die. I also look at the price. Some places have better pricing than others, and I don't want to always spend an arm and a leg on fish. Like the most research I have done when it comes to buying a fish online was when I was getting my African cichlids. Now the reason I did the most research on those was because I was putting them in a smaller tank and I needed to really look at what fish I could get, and I did a lot of research on the best company, and that is when I ended up going with the company I went to get them. So when I look for buying fish, I mostly just look and make sure they're healthy, if they're at the pet store, they're active. If I'm buying online, I read all the reviews I can, I look at their pictures. If I'm buying from like an eBay seller or another online seller, I will typically ask them to send me a video of the fish just so I can check and make sure it's, you know, a healthy, active tank of fish. Other than that, I just go in and buy my fish at a store.
For one, I make sure that the fish is in the best health as it could possibly be at the fish store if I'm getting it there. I will check and see if it has any kind of parasites that I can see or fungus issues, and also to make sure that it does not have a sunken in belly. With that being said, I highly recommend to quarantine your fish, but I don't necessarily do that all the time, because some people I get my fish from, I just trust, and I know that they will send me nothing but healthy fish, and I trust how they breed and raise their stock. So that's how I choose my fish.
First thing I look for is what kind of filtration does that LFS have? Do they have a filtration system that is all in one, or do they have sponge filters for each tank? Can they shut off each tank individually if needed be, if that tank was sick and another one wasn't? Of course, we're looking to see if there's any dead fish floating, or are there any dead fish already collected on the bottom of the tank? Fin rot, fin nipping, ick, any kinds of diseases, bacterial diseases. Are they gasping for air at the top? Are they just being real quiet and standoffish in the back of the tank? Know the fish that you're looking for. Make sure you know its natural activities, its natural way of moving, and then, you know, make sure that that's what that fish is doing. Do they quarantine? That is a huge thing to know. If they don't quarantine, you're gonna have issues. There's going to be ick, there's going to be fish that are just not doing well. They're just sick. I mean, it happens. You're importing fish, you're going through them, it's gonna happen. Just without quarantining fish, you're gonna have sick fish. So you're gonna wanna know how to look and pick the good ones out. Or not even buy from that store. I mean, if you know that that store doesn't quarantine, you're taking a big risk of not knowing, you know, maybe that fish is not showing any signs yet, but it's on the verge. As soon as you give it any kind of stress, boom, it's going to get sick if they don't quarantine. If they quarantine, how long do they quarantine for? Do they quarantine for 2 weeks, or do they quarantine for a month? Very, very important thing to know when you're buying fish. Look at the quality of the tanks. Are the employees using the same nets? Are they taking this net and using that same net to go get fish out of another tank? You want to make sure they're swapping nets and making sure that those other nets are going into solution. So when you go into your LFS, if there's an employee that asks you, do you need help right off the bat? I would say, no, I'm just looking. And I would definitely observe the tanks in general, then start looking for the fish that you're looking for specifically if you decide that you want to buy a fish from that store. Those are things that I look for when I'm buying a fish from an LFS or a Petco or a PetSmart or any fish store.
I really wish I had a good answer to share with you, but at the end of the day, if I walk into the pet store or fish store and they have a setup, an aquarium that catches my eye and I see a fish that I want to bring home, if I have the tank space for it, chances are there's a high probability I'm bringing that fish home, especially if they are swimming really well. They don't have any signs of ick or any just abrasions or anything that stands out on their body. And if I can see someone feed that tank and they are eating, chances are I'm gonna bring that fish home. So I don't have anything as a checklist that I look for specifically, but if they're swimming okay, I can see them eat. They don't have any outward signs of skin abrasions or fungus or especially ick, and I have the tank space, I'm probably gonna bring them home.
Well, first off, I want to make sure I can house it. But whenever I actually go to the fish store or I go to the internet's kind of hard because you can't really pick your own fish out. You got to rely on the person that is selling the fish to give you a nice looking fish. But whenever you're at a fish store, like for me, for an example, whenever I'm looking for any particular fish that I research, and it's going to be something that I want to keep long term. For an example, behind me you can see they're swimming blue star sapphire cichlids. And I did a lot of research whenever I first seen it. So what I look for is I just want to make sure I want to keep it long term, because some fish could end up being a long term fish. Like these guys, for an example, they don't get full grown until about 3 or 4 years old. So what I look for in those is whenever I saw it, I was like, man, that's a pretty cool looking fish. It caught my eye. I was interested in it. So the first thing, I want to make sure I'm interested into the fish. Second, whenever I'm picking my fish out, I'm making sure it's healthy. And what do I mean by that? I'm looking around the whole tank itself. I'm looking at the condition of the tank, because if you got a bunch of fish starting to die in there, and I know I really want that fish, I ain't buying it. Mainly because there's probably sick fish in there. And it could be whenever I bring that fish home, it would be sick also. So that's what I look for in a particular fish. Is I want to make sure it's healthy first off, because I'm spending the money. Because let's face it, a lot of these fish are pretty expensive, and we're making an investment into a fish that we're going to try to keep alive in a glass box. So first thing I'm doing is, like I said, make sure I'm interested in a fish and I really want it. 2, I can house it. And 3, whenever I pick it out, I'm making sure it's a pretty healthy fish. So that's what I look for. There's other things, I'm sure other people got different reasons, but for me, that's what mine are.
What do I look for when purchasing a particular fish? Well, I'm looking for, and most likely if it's African cichlids, I'm looking for bright colors, clear eyes, bright red gills, a fish that is moving around the tank, moving about the tank, not in a corner of a tank, not in in the bottom of the tank or behind the filter or anything like that. I need a nice, bold, crisp looking fish. Scales need to be nice and close together and in good contact. Fins need to not be nibbled or look rotted off. Just a bold, nice specimen. Fish full of life. Hopefully a younger fish, which you'll see with those brighter colors and the energy and energetic. So that's what I'm looking for when I purchase a fish. I would like all of my fish to look like that, so that you can have the most cohesive tank, a very active tank, a very colorful tank, and hopefully a very healthy tank.
What do you look for before you buy a particular fish? So I'm going to take that question two ways. The first is, you're in your local pet store and you're looking at a tank and you want to pick out one fish from that tank. What are you looking for? And the other is, as a fish store myself, what do I look for when I order fish from my supplier? So the first one, if I'm in your store and I'm looking at your tank full of random fish, call it platies, I don't know, and I'm trying to pick out the one in there that I want to take home, what I would do is first I would step back from the tank as far as I could and still observe the fish but not disturb them, and I just watch it for a few minutes. I'd see if everyone's behaving normally. Is everyone swimming like normal? Is everyone going at the right level of the tank? Are there fish up in the corner kind of just shimmying and staying up there and not moving around? Are they going around and browsing and grazing on the plants and stuff like platies do? Are they acting normal? That's the first thing. Then I would get in there and look really close. Now that I see everyone's behaving normally, I would get really close and look at the fins, I'd look at the gills, I'd look at the body, I'd look at the eyes, and just do an inspection. Are all the fins there? Is the body a good normal shape? Are there any signs of disease or infection or anything like that at all? Then I'd ask the store, how long have you had these? If they've had them for a while, that can be good. If they've had them for a few weeks, that's awesome. They probably have water that's similar to yours, and so the fish are probably acclimated to the water in your area. Not always true, but you know, rule of thumb. I would ask them, what are they eating and how well are they eating? And find out all those things. And then I would make a selection based on that observation. So that's how I would pick a specific fish if I was in a store trying to buy one. As a store that buys fish, what I look for mostly is the supplier level. So it's not necessarily a specific fish we get there, but we start with the supplier. Is this a supplier that treats fish humanely? Is this a supplier that will transport fish as humanely as possible? Is this a supplier that you know, is treating the fish well? So if they are, then I go down the list and I make a dream list of all the fish that supplier has that I would like to have. And then from there I crunch the numbers and I figure, if I do buy this fish, can I sell it at a profit? Like, will the market support the price I would need to charge if I brought this fish in? Would the business still exist if I bought this fish and resold it? Would we make money, or would we lose money and go out of business? So supplier, if the supplier is good, dream list, and from there narrow it down based on what I'd have to sell the fish for. Does that meet our margins? And if it doesn't, then I can't bring it in. Can't sell a fish that will, you know, make us go out of business. So that's kind of how I do it. So that's how I choose the fish that I bring in. Other things too, though, like, are they compatible with the other fish I sell? So if a customer buys one fish from me, are they going to be able to buy a second fish from me? Or can they not go in the tank together? You know, maybe that's not a good idea, because then you just have one fish that a customer can buy, and you don't have anything else they can put in the tank with that fish. It's less likely that they'll buy that fish. So there's other factors like that too. So that's kind of how I decide, in a very, you know, broad level, how to purchase fish.
Okay, let me start by saying I don't buy a lot of fish locally. Once I realized you could get high quality, healthy live fish without leaving the house, I was sold. Luckily, my friends here have some great answers for what to look for when you buy a fish in person, so I'll talk a little bit about what I look for before buying a fish online. With only a few exceptions, you don't really get to see the fish you're going to get in real time, or, you know, be too picky about which ones look the prettiest to you. So I have to really look at the store itself. Like, first there's the store's reputation, not just online reviews, but also asking real people here in the fish fam what their experience has been. I mean, that in itself will tell you a lot about their customer service, the quality of the fish, and how transparent they are about the way they handle their stock. And I guess second to that, but maybe still sort of related to their reputation, is their live arrival guarantee. In my opinion, an online fish store should have a live arrive guarantee that covers not just the fish, but also the shipping. With every other industry, it's like that, refund or replacement. And I mean, now I get with a live animal shipment, you know, the buyer has some responsibilities, like the lag time between receiving the box and actually reporting a problem. It needs to be pretty short, like immediate. If the seller has any business being a shipper in the first place, DOAs should be rare and really only a tiny part of the cost of doing business. And finally, I think the store should take some reasonable measures to work with customers after the fish are actually out of the bag and in the tank. Not that I expect some 2-week no questions asked refund guarantee, but you know, on a case-by-case basis, I do think it's in a business's best interest to help their customers set up for success so they don't get frustrated and quit the hobby and are no longer a customer at all. So I hope you find this video helpful. There's a lot of great advice here. Now go get you some beautiful, healthy live fish, and I'll see you later.